Hi, my name's Catherine. Welcome to Starlight Garden. It's a tiny medicinal plant and heirloom veggie farm in southeast Atlanta. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about dirt. Dirt is the first thing that you're going to need to start your garden. You can't plant without the dirt. If you saw my last videos, then you know that I started this farm with very little money and no childcare on a vacant lot in my neighborhood about a year ago. And a lot of people might want to know, how did I get this much dirt for no money? In this video, I'm going to share my soil recipe with you. I'm going to tell you how to prepare your land for your garden to come in. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about no-dig gardening, the philosophy, and how to get started. So everywhere you can see inside of this white fence is essentially one big raised bed. I am standing on about 18 inches of organic matter that we brought in and layered on top of the grass and the privet and the blackberries that was already here. This is a no-dig garden, and that doesn't mean I didn't shovel, because I really shoveled. I shoveled a lot. There's a surprising amount of digging in no-dig gardening, I noticed. However, I did not dig up this earth before I planted. I did not till it up. Tilling will kill the worms that are in the soil, and it will also release carbon from the soil into the atmosphere, and that contributes to global warming. Tillers themselves are sometimes gasoline powered, and their engines contribute to global warming. And I don't have a tiller, so I discovered this no-dig method by searching YouTube, and there are some really awesome YouTubers who can tell you even more about no-dig gardening than I can. They've been doing it for 20, 30 years, and I've only been doing it for a year. I did not invent this, but I absolutely love this style of gardening. The first thing we did was bring in cardboard. I put down 4 layers of cardboard on top of the grass. I found it behind grocery stores and on the side of the road, and friends brought newspaper and cardboard that they were going to recycle to me, and even paper bags, and I built a solid layer of smothering paper, organic paper, not like landscape cloth that's plastic and won't break down over time, but something that will smother the invasives that were here, but allow water through into the earth and eventually turn into soil as well. On top of the 4 layers of cardboard, we began layering on organic materials. The bulk of the organic material that we brought in was wood chips, and free compost from the county. The free compost from the county and the wood chips were both not very well composted, which means that they were going to leach a little bit of nitrogen out of the soil as they broke down, and that's not ideal. That meant having to supplement by planting cover crops that would fix the nitrogen in the soil, and also adding nitrogen to the soil itself in the form of organic fertilizer. I also added coffee grounds, clover, leaf cuttings, compost that I made myself, compost from a compost service, lime, weed teas and poured those over the earth here. Newspaper, blood and bone meal, horse manure, cow manure, lots of lovely dead leaves to, oh gosh, 55,000 pounds of organic material went into this space. Every time new material comes in, I layer it over the top of the material that's already there. I have heard the no-dig gardening community call this layering method a forest floor method, meaning it's like a forest floor in the way that materials layer on top of each other. Mother Nature does not dig, she only layers. Branches and leaves fall, moss grows, animals decompose. All of Mother Nature's layers contribute to the ecosystem of her soil. Just like the forest floor, every time I brought new organic materials into the garden, instead of turning them under with a shovel or a tiller, I just layered my new soil ingredients right on top of what had already been resting there. All through the fall, we brought in organic material until we had about a foot deep all over the 30 by 35 foot plot. Then we let that material rest. We let it rot. We let it attract worms. We continued to add amendments over the top, but basically we took that time to let it become soil while I started my plants over on my property. I started all of my plants from seed, and while they were growing, the soil got ready for them. Then, when the danger of hard frost was over, it was time to lay out my paths and my garden beds so that I could put all those baby plants in the ground. To give myself an idea of where everything was going to go, I used bamboo poles. Bamboo is available in my neighborhood, and I moved the poles around the garden, outlining different paths and beds. And when I had a pretty good idea of how to get started, I dug the paths up with a shovel. Since it was a foot deep of good soil all over the whole garden, I dug the paths out. I didn't need good soil where the paths were going to be, and I mounded the path soil up on top of the beds. That made the beds really deep, 18 inches to 3 feet deep in some places. Because I don't own this land, I borrow it. I didn't actually want raised beds here. I didn't want to build that much infrastructure on property that didn't belong to me. So I knew I was going to plant right into the ground. And planting in the ground actually saved me a lot of money and a lot of time. Then it was time to plant. And the last thing I did to the soil before I brought in the plants was aerate the soil with a garden fork. Air is a very important soil ingredient. Here is a close-up of my homemade dirt. You can see how it turned out and how it looked right before I planted. In the next video, I will show you guys what the garden looks like after our first hard frost. And I'll give you a tour of some of my perennial herbs that are still green and thriving even in winter. When it gets closer to spring planting time, I'll tell you guys how I decided what to plant where. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. I think that's all I wanted to say about soil today. Hairdo props. I have heard the train